Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Kuchera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome in. Good afternoon. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon. I greatly appreciate that. As we continue to roll through the week, just a reminder, we are with you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 Pacific Daylight Time. And a couple different ways to listen, watch, and track and follow Real Estate Radio Live. One, of course, is the live show that we do between 3 and 4 every day. You could also listen to it live online if you're in other states or other locations. Maybe you don't have access to a radio or you're online or watching it somewhere else. You could go to kdow.biz. That's kdow.biz, and you just click on the big live banner there. It says Listen Live. And you could listen to the show between 3 and 4 Pacific Daylight Time no matter where you are. You don't need a radio. You could listen to it that way. And then after the show's over, we then use this content for our podcast so that it becomes the podcast, and then we'll distribute and develop the podcast, get it out to you, the consumers, and all others that listen and download the podcast. You could do that. If you haven't downloaded the podcast yet, you go to iTunes. You could download it there. Just type in Real Estate Radio Live and you get the podcast downloaded. You could also go to our website at reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com, and get the podcast that way. During the show, we have an 800 number. If you want to interact, give us a call. If you have any questions about the show, the guest, the topic, 1-800-516-1220. That's 1-800-516-1220 if you want to get your calls on the air during the show. A lot of people like to text. I'll try to get to those questions when you do text. If you want to do that, the number is 408-838-9060. And if you're listening to this via podcast, that's the best way to reach us, is the 408-838-9060. And you could always email Joe at reradiolive.com. The focus, the focus has been the same since I've started the show almost 8 years ago, and that is I want to be able to continue to offer you, the consumer, the listener, the benefit to educate and inform on anything and everything real estate. That's the tagline. That's what we continue to do. We have great guests, good information, research, data for you that continue to help educate you, the consumer. In the latter part of the show today, in segments 3 and 4, we have 4 segments for the show. Segments 3 and 4, I'm going to invite in a guest that we have every once in a while, Damion Lupo. He's a financial transformation expert. He really helps people take control of your financial, really just your financial profile, whether it be real estate, investments, different things of that nature. And he's very, very good. And got a lot of great energy, and also offers some good insight into some of the hysteria that's going on in the stock market. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about gold, what's going on with the Fed, and Damien's really good and keeps his finger on the pulse of all those things. We'll talk a little bit about tax cuts and much more. So the first 2 segments, I want to talk a little bit about how I think you'll hear this a lot going forward. You'll hear this a lot, how I think the world of real estate is transformation. There's a transformation taking place. There's a big switch in the way things are going to be happening, the way the transactions are going to be taking, the way consumers approach real estate. Believe me, it's coming. Some of you are already seeing it. Some of you will deny it. Some of you will ignore it. Some of you will embrace it. For the ones that embrace it, good for you, because then you'll be on the front cutting edge of this, and you'll realize that the world is changing and real estate is changing. You'll hear a lot of that from this show, because it's important for me not necessarily to tell people what they want to hear and keep things as they are and, keep my head in the sand and think that things aren't changing. Things are changing every day. Every part of our life, things are changing. And is not unique to real estate and lending. It is changing as well. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of a lot of components of this business and this industry that's going to be changing. And so I would suggest that, just kind of tune in, listen, keep up to date on some of the stuff that's going on. It's changing. There's different models of real estate out there. There's no more. For instance, let me give you some statistical data here. So, ladies and gentlemen, a decade or so ago, most people, 60 to 75% of people would first contact their real estate agent before doing anything. Before doing anything with real estate, they would contact a real estate agent. Okay? That's been flipped upside down. So here's what happens now. 95% of people go online and start their own research before they contact anybody. And then guess what? Nearly 75% of people now will contact their lender and get their financing in shape before they contact a realtor. And that's really the way it should be. That's the way it should be, and it's coming around. And so for those in the industry that don't see that don't track this data, I would suggest that you jump on board, figure it out, try to figure out how your model works and how your business works to try to capture as much business as you can. The consumer, almost 75% of consumers are now contacting the lender and getting their financing in shape before they even make contact with a real estate agent, which I quite frankly think is the right thing to do. Here's why. If you get with your real estate agent first and you have no idea what's going on with your financing, then you're going to be not only potentially wasting your time, but their time. And you might be headed down a path that doesn't make any sense for you. If you're looking for a house at $1.5 million and you can only afford a $1.3 million home, you could be really spinning your wheels and not really understanding what you could afford. So I share this with you because this is the way the market's going. Consumers are taking more and more control of transactions. I mean, the big one we hear about all the time is Uber, right? But Amazon is another one. Do you realize that Amazon, are you ready for this? If you're not sitting down or driving, be safe. Amazon represents, listen to this, Amazon represents 50% of every single online purchase transaction, a purchase nationally. Think about that. 50%. 50% of everything, every transaction taking place online, Amazon represents 50% of those transactions. Do you know what that means? Hundreds and hundreds of millions of people have adapted to online businesses, services, deliveries. We're all familiar with it, whether it's a book or food or vitamins, groceries. It doesn't matter. These items are being delivered, and Amazon represents 50% of that. Why do I say that? Because do you realize how this is changing? Do you understand that the consumer makes these decisions every day? The consumer no longer walks into the store and talks to Jimmy or Susie and says, I think I want to buy that CD or buy that television over there. Can you guys tell me a little bit about that? No. You know what they do? They go online. They do their research. They compare. They do their due diligence. There's no difference in real estate, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let people tell you, oh, wait a minute, it's totally different. It's the biggest transaction you'll ever make in your life. Well, that's true. But technology is still going to be changing the way we make that transaction happen. Are people still going to be using real estate agents? Absolutely. The data tells us that, just like lenders, upwards of 90%. So 9 out of 10 people, once they finally make a decision, they still want professional assistance. That part is not going to change. It will a little bit. So I am not one that believes when some of these models are out there suggesting that you're going to completely get the real estate away from the real estate agent and the lender away from the transaction. I could tell you right now, I'm immersed in research more than just about anybody, and more than anybody because of this, what I do every day. Every single day, I'm reading research and data and keeping up on this. And there are some models out there that would suggest that, they're going to completely take the real estate agent, the lender out of the equation. That's not going to happen. Now, when I say it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen anytime soon, A. And B, if it happens, and it is happening a little bit, there's going to be a small percentage of how it will happen. It's already happening. There's companies, startup companies out there that are taking the lender, so to speak, and the real estate agent completely out of the equation. It's happening. Don't fool yourself. It's a small percentage. The majority and still are using competent, qualified people, which is really what most consumers want when you look at the data and the research. But what I'm going to suggest you as consumers do, and even those in the industry, don't assume that things are never going to change and that just because you've done things a certain way for the last 20 years, they're going to stay the same. They will not. And that will not change in real estate. I should say that's the tune is going to be changing. And so as the next several months go by, I'll be sharing more and more about this with the objective to educate. All right, we're going to take a quick break here in a couple seconds. When I come back, I'm going to continue talking a little bit about the industry, the changes, the dynamic, a little bit about title and escrow. What do they play in this role, and what kind of changes are coming down the title and escrow pike? This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Thank you again for joining me this afternoon. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We're with you live every day from 3 to 4 Pacific Daylight Time. If you want to tune in and listen, it's KDOW 1220 AM. You could also listen to us live online at kdow.biz. And we're going to be trying to stream these every day, live social media, Facebook, online every day as well. So catch us there. Answer us if you want to contact us. Couple different ways, of course. If you're live during the live part of the show, you could call us at 1-800-516-1220, or you could always text 408-838-9060, or email joe@reradiolive.com. The conversation today in the first couple of segments is understanding some of the changes that are taking place in the real estate world. I'm going to talk now a little bit about how title and escrow are going to be affected by this, and to keep your eyes open for some of the changes coming forward. And then the last two segments, I'm going to invite in a guest, a returning guest that's been on the show a couple times, and that is Mr. Damion Lupo. He is a financial expert and the CEO of Total Control Financial. Does a great job at understanding the markets. We're going to talk a little bit about the stock market, gold, maybe what's going on with the Fed, interest rates, and some tax cuts, etc. He is an expert in that area and is great, always great to have on the show. So we'll welcome him on in the next couple of segments. All right, let me take this segment to talk a little bit about title and escrow. So for you, for all of you out there that have done all of your transactions, your purchase transactions or refinance transactions, all of you have had to, if you're in California, and let's just stay specific to Northern California, have had to use title and escrow as part of that. Well, title and escrow, most of you know, serves a couple different purposes. A lot of wonderful people in this business that are protecting your best interests, and they play a third party, totally objective third party that takes the transaction, handles the money, totally independent and separately from the lender and the real estate company by design, on purpose. That's by design. The other purpose they play is they ensure there's a title insurance on the property, on the loans. And this is needed, of course, to make sure you have clear title. You don't want a cloud on the title. You don't want problems with the title. If you do, you want to have the insurance on there so that you have some protection. So this is an important component of the transaction. The unfortunate part is most people don't understand when they go to get a loan or they go to purchase a home or refinance, they don't know that they have a choice to choose who they want to work with on a title and escrow company. And this will start changing. Believe me, this will start changing. So consumers are going to become more wise. Consumers, if you look at your paperwork, consumers, you have a choice by law. You have a choice to choose the title and escrow company that we use in a transaction. But guess what happens? When it comes to that, your real estate agent will say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, guess what? We're excited. You found a place, or we're going to sell your house. We have to have a title and escrow. I have some great people I know in title and escrow. How would you just suggest that I use who I know? Absolutely. Just use who. Well, the reason they say that is because very few people don't understand it. They know they need it, right? Some people will have friends and family in title and escrow, and they'll say, hey, I'd love to use these people, over at Fidelity or Cornerstone or someone else. That they might say that, right? They might have someone, and so they might work. But 90% of the people will say they'll leave it up to someone like me that's doing the loan, or they'll leave it up to the real estate company to say, yeah, absolutely, choose whoever you want to. This is going to start to change too. Mark my words. Title and escrow is going to the model is going to change a little bit. And what I mean by that is it is going to become more of a business to consumer function. Right now, it's business to business. Right now, guess what? Title and escrow gets very cozy with real estate companies. And some people may not want to hear this, but it's the truth. They get very cozy, and in many cases, they have joint ventures with real estate companies. Why? Why do they have this? Because traditionally, guess what? Real estate agents are the ones that choose the title and escrow companies, okay? Slowly but surely, as this changes, consumers were going to take more power and more control over this. Now, some people are going, oh, Joe, that's not going to happen. Yes, it is. It's already starting to happen. You'll see it start happening more and more in the next couple of years. Is it a huge change? No. Is it incremental? Yes. Will it grow? Yes. But these are the kinds of things, again, believe me, you're going to see them coming. So historically, you have title companies aligning themselves, even doing joint ventures with real estate companies. You know why? Guess why? Because that's where the source of referrals are coming from. And so the real estate companies want to benefit, and the title companies want to benefit from this. So guess what? This is a normal business practice, by the way. So here's what happens. You have a major real estate company like a Coldwell Banker that's aligned with Cornerstone, and some of these others that are aligned with Fidelity, and there's several others that are aligned with certain title companies. Here's the reason they do that, ladies and gentlemen. They don't do it to improve the service. They do it because it's a source of revenue for the real estate company. Okay? There's nothing wrong with this. Companies do this all the time. The reason I'm explaining it to you is that you, the consumer, will be able to shortly, soon, going forward, you, the consumer, will be able to have more of a say and a decision in what title company you use and how much you're going to pay for these fees. Right now, you don't. Soon you will. This is going to start changing too. Most people always scratch their head and go, well, why do I need title and escrow? Well, you absolutely need it. And there's a reason why it's there. And there's a bunch of wonderful people in that business protecting you, believe me. That's not the point. The point is the three legs of a transaction are going to be changing. They're changing already in real estate, and you're going to continue to see it change. And the three legs, the three components are real estate, lending, and title and escrow in Northern California. That's what we're talking about right now specifically. So when a real estate agent refers you to their partner in the title business, guess what? That real estate company is making additional money because of that decision they made. Is something wrong with that? No, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a business decision, and that's fine. People just say, oh, well, fine. I'll use the company because that's who you decided. But here's what's going to change. Consumers are going to become more and more educated on the fact that, wait a minute. Why number one, I'm okay choosing this company, but why can't I discuss what I'm paying and why I'm paying these fees? And why is it that they have enough money to pay you when they send me your way? Why can't they give me some discounts? This is the kind of real stuff that's going to be taking place. It's already taking place with real estate and lending, ladies and gentlemen. 65% of people surveyed say that they think and they want to be able to negotiate with real estate and lenders when it comes to their rates and fees. They do. Now, we could try to, stick our heads in the sand and act like this is not going to happen, but it's happening now. So as a company, as a consumer, how do you better prepare yourself for your next transaction? This is my point. This is what I'm talking about. How do you better prepare yourself for the next transaction? Do you just do things as normal? Or do you take a step back and go, you know what? Let me think about this. So you're saying that I have more say in my real estate, my lending, and my title and escrow. And Joe says, yes, you do. And not just me, by the way. A lot of people say, yes, you do. Just think about it. All the different changes are taking place. It's also taking place in the real estate industry, and you will continue to hear it on this show. You will continue to hear it from me. You'll hear it from the industry, other people that understand the dynamics of change. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to change directions a little bit. We're going to have a conversation with Damion Lupo. Hope he'll be on the line. We're going to talk with Damion a little bit in the next two segments about the financial markets, investing, maybe a little bit of gold, maybe some interest rates, and much, much more. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Give us a call, 1-800-516-1220. I see there's a couple of texts here. I'll be back in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live as we roll through the week and the day today. We are with you live Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 Pacific Daylight Time. If you want to get your calls on the air during the live portion, it's 1-800-516-1220. Or if you want to text, if you have any questions for me or my guest, it's 408-838-9060. Most of you know, again, the focus on Real Estate Radio Live is to continue to work really hard to get great guests, good content, information to help you, the consumer, make wise decisions in and around real estate and other aspects of real estate in your life. And we'll continue to do that. So let me welcome in my guest. He has been on the show a couple different times. I'd like to have him back every once in a while to give us an update on a few different things. Mr. Damion Lupo, he is a financial transformation expert and CEO of Total Control Financial. Damion, good to have you back.
It's good to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Good. Everything going well?
Things are going well. We're in a wild market, as everybody's kind of watching right now.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that because we have some interesting stuff to do, and I know you immerse yourself in research, and you're in the middle of this every day. So I'm looking forward. Before we do that, though, if you could, Damion, if you could just take a minute or so to give the audience an idea of your background and then kind of your current roles and responsibilities on a day-to-day, activity with your company today.
Yeah, definitely. My background is pretty extensive in private companies. I've had 30-plus companies. My real estate background, these are companies I started. My real estate background started in the late 90s. I went out and started buying houses like a lot of folks in the real estate investment world, and ended up buying about 150 houses, did a bunch of developments, had $20 million in property, and then had a big thing called 2008 crush me like a freight train, and had to rebuild from there. So went from a positive $5 million net worth to a negative $5 million net worth, and had to learn from that. And then here we are today using those lessons to watch a very similar thing go on with kind of a real estate boom. And I'm looking at it with a different sense because of having gone through that process of of losing a fortune. It's a unique set of scar tissue that you end up with, and so I'm kind of seeing things a little different than most people, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, listen, let's jump in a little bit. We have a couple segments which will be fun to talk about a number of different things with you, Damion. So talk a little bit about the stock market, the hysteria here. I mean, we're looking at quite a run. I mean, the train has not only left the track, but it's on its way, and it's kind of like running downhill with no brakes. There's some, there's some conversation on one side of the aisle that says, you know, look for much, much more. I don't know why any reason this is going to slow down. And then there's some other rules of thumb that say, be careful because too much is a good thing sometimes. And we're going to have a setback soon. What's your take on that?
Well, we hear the same thing every time. Every time we have a bull market, an upswing, people will say it's different this time because of this or that.
Yeah.
Happened in the 90s, happened in the mid 2000s. There was, tech was booming. There's always a reason to say it's different, but these are cyclical.
Right.
Things happen in cycles. It always has been. It always will. And what we've seen is a massive run up. It's basically gone straight up. If you look at the Dow, the Nasdaq, the S&P, globally, all these markets are going straight up. And it's just not sustainable, and you have to ask why. And there are a few things that happened. The rates in general dropped to basically free money space, and that triggered a lot of cash going into the markets. And then the Fed ended up with this giant amount of cash that they pushed into the system, and that's starting to show up in the markets. And then like Walmart announcing their $20 billion share buyback, those type of things are happening because these companies don't really have anything to do with their cash. They're just buying their shares. And that's pushing the markets up, but it's not sustainable because eventually they run out of cash, and then we've got a problem. Where's the demand going to come from?
Yeah, and the other thing is, I kind of chuckle and laugh. It's not funny, but it is kind of that when we're in times like this, the one thing that I'm always reminded by, and I look back with the other times too, boy, I'll tell you, you got so many geniuses out there. It's amazing. Like everybody's bragging about their portfolio. Everybody's saying I got an average 15% return. I mean, people have got their chests out. I mean, I'm not being a little bit sarcastic, of course, but I guess my point is that I'm always amazed at the people that take credit for something they have nothing to do with. Does that make sense? I mean, we're on a crazy run, but yet we got a bunch of geniuses out there. So what do we do when we're in euphoria and we realize that we got to come back down to reality here soon?
Well, as one of those previously very high people that was smoking a lot of opium back in the mid 2000s and being part of that mass hysteria, we have to realize that the speculators are not what are those people that plan, which a lot of us have either been a part or a part now. This is not sustainable. It's not based on fundamentals, this market, whether it's equities or real estate. And so people that say, I'm so good because I made all this money, that's like saying I won a lottery ticket, or I went to the casino and hit red, and therefore I'm brilliant. The truth is you're going to be really stupid in a minute when the market collapses, and you're going to go, oh man, that's my money. It's gone. Well, it wasn't your money in the first place. You just got lucky. So we have to start really thinking about fundamentals and what makes sense going forward in a real market, not in an artificially inflated one. And I think that's the shift. And a lot of people don't want to do that because they're not going to be able to get those easy 15-20% returns they've been having for the last however many years.
Do you think so? What would your recommendation be? I mean, so I think you're one. I'm not going to speak for you, but do you believe? I think that, and again, I'll let you explain that there'll be somewhat of a correction here. Tell us kind of what your thoughts are. When do you think that's going to happen? No one could tell us the day or the month, but certainly there's a time period you might be able to talk a little bit to. And what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's really fitting that we're in the fall season right now because economically we're also in that fall cycle. Jim Rohn talked a lot about this, that there's always these cycles, and in fall, that's when you harvest. And for a lot of us that have profits that are sitting there, it's a good time to take things and start kind of shoring up and having that powder dry for the next thing, for the winter that's coming. The winter that's coming, the timing is, my guess is the next 15 months. And I say that because the Fed is indicating that they're going to raise rates in December. They're also indicating they're going to raise rates in next year by like 0.75 of a point. That pushes treasuries in a direction that's not helpful for housing and for real estate. And my guess is that's going to increase rates by about 20%, and that's going to push prices of houses down 15 to 20%. That's a big problem economically and for real estate people. And so that's happening. We know that's in the schedule. And if we just ignore that, we're going to get hit pretty hard. But we can plan, and we can actually do well in that environment if we think through it.
So do you think, are you saying that regardless of it's the stock market and or real estate, people should be really taking a look at their kind of portfolio in general, whether it be, real estate and market investments, and taking a look and see what they may want to make some adjustments now, or take some off the table, or fend off the worst case, or what do you thought?
Yeah, I think this is a really good time to take some of our money, some of those gains out of play. And when I used to double down constantly, and I thought I was so smart, and I kept all my money in play all the time, and when things corrected, all my money got hit at once, and my assets, and especially with leverage, I got hurt really bad. And a lot of people are in that same space, so it's a good time to say, okay, you know what? We know rates going up. We know companies aren't going to have the same amount of cash and liquidity to buy their shares back. We know this thing has been going on for 8 straight years. Maybe it's time to be a little bit conservative and hedge a little bit. So I think it's a really good time to pull stuff out and be really heavy in cash and things that are really safe. I don't even think bonds are safe. If you look at that market, we've got a major bubble going on there too. So things that are really, really safe that aren't going to be impacted by all the stuff that's coming in the next 15 months, I think it's a good time to start shifting some assets and be really careful right now.
Okay. So we got a couple of minutes left in this segment still. What would you suggest, or do you have any ideas or thoughts for people that go, okay, so I'm scratching my head, I'm going to try to take some off the table, I might try to diversify a little bit, and I could be a little heavy in certain areas. I mean, the bond could be, as you would say, the bonds usually are traditionally conservative, but that may be at risk to a certain extent. Then there's real estate. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's had quite a run up too in most of our areas. Do you have any other thoughts or any other suggestions that you might have for people looking for other vehicles, so to speak?
Yeah, one of the things that I really like for people to do is to start investing. I mean, we've heard this before, but really investing a little bit in themselves and getting smarter and better, and not just throwing money at things that have been going up. And so I like people investing. You can't have that taken away from you when markets correct. And if you do things, if you start investing in yourself, you're going to realize that you've got an opportunity to invest in things now that are going to be okay in a downturn, like rental property that's in a good market, and you get out of the speculation space. That's the dangerous space to be in.
Yeah, good point. We have about a minute or so before our first break. Before we do that, why don't we do this before we take a break? If someone wants to get a hold of you, Damion, wants to find out a little bit more about what you do, how you might be able to help them or educate, I know you got a lot of stuff going on. What's the best place to reach you?
Best place to reach me and all the stuff that I have and the tool that I can give people is at damionlupo.com. There's just a ton there, resources that people can tap into and download to their heart's content. Okay,
damionlupo.com. And so we're gonna take a break here in a minute, and when we come back, we have a lot more to talk about. If you have any questions to ask Damion, it'd be a great time actually if you're driving around out there or you're listening online. If you want to check in with us, there's 2 ways you can communicate and ask Damion questions if you'd like, or me. It doesn't matter. 1-800-516-1220. That's 1-800-516-1220. Maybe you're out there wondering, what about my 401ks? What about my real estate? What about the investments? I've had quite a run up. I'm feeling pretty good, but am I going to come crashing down, or am I going to be okay? Or you could text those questions, 408-838-9060. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back with you to continue in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Appreciate tuning in, listening, corresponding. I have a text question for Damion I'll get to in just a minute. If you have any questions for me or Damion, we still have about 5 or 6 minutes left in the last segment here. You could call 1-800-516-1220, or you could text 408-838-9060. I have Damion Lupo on the line. He is a financial transformation expert, CEO of Total Control Financial. We're talking about the market, the run-up, a little bit about expectations. We chatted a little bit about what the Fed's going to raise, looks like next month, or I should say December. Then, yeah, the thought is, as Damion mentioned, I think I'm hearing the same 3 times next year, which will put rates up, could put rates up almost 1 full percent from where we are today, maybe a little less. But I would think, if we're sitting at around, let's just say, I know it bounces around, Damion, but if we're sitting around 4% or so with 30-year money on the mortgages, we could probably very easily this time next year be looking at something closer to 5, maybe 4 3/4 or so.
Yeah, and if you look at what happened the last 10 years, the last 15 years, as rates dropped, prices went up because a person that's making a certain amount of money can afford a certain amount of house. And when the rates were dropping, they could afford more house. The exact opposite is going to happen. So if rates go from 4 to 5, that 25% increase, the only way that people can still afford a house with their certain income that hasn't really changed is for the price of the houses to drop about 20%. So think about that, because that's what ran this bull for a while in the real estate market, and the inverse of it's happening right now. So that is not going to be neutral. That is going to be a very devastating factor in the pricing of the market across the country.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, let's chat for a couple minutes about taxes. We're hearing about tax cuts, and it's so confusing, I think, to the average American or consumer, because they're thinking, you know what? I'm so tired of hearing about tax cuts, number one. Number two, is it going to happen? Number three, if it does it affect me? Do I make too little? Do I make too much? What do you make out of, what could be coming down the pike with any kind of tax changes or implications here?
Well, unfortunately, tax cuts or tax changes typically are pitched as something that's good for everybody. And what ultimately happens is the middle class gets hammered. And so that's probably what's going to happen here. I don't really see that being a big difference in this tax cut round. I think maybe the lower end folks in terms of income are going to feel a little bit good about, hey, my taxes might be dropping a little bit. And that's really just to appease the voters and get people to get on board. But the people that are really going to get hurt are the middle class. It's the ones that are not looking at using the code to their benefit. And that's one of the great things about real estate is you can use the code, which is set up for you to win if you're in real estate or small business. So it's really the time to start thinking about real estate investment. I'm not talking about speculation. Speculation is where you're going to get killed. But when you're talking, and I mean just because of the taxes, when you buy and sell, you're flipping and that kind of thing, easily 60, 70% taxes. When you're investing, you can pay 0 taxes, just like Donald Trump has done for a long time, just like a lot of people in real estate. And so if we start thinking like professional investors, this tax cut could actually be really helpful, but we have to move into a space, the space that the tax code is written for, and that's being an actual investor.
Got it. Hey, listen, with a couple minutes left, one of the things it's not really on, so to speak, I like to go off script, and I know you do too, because we could have conversations about any of this stuff. It's great. It's entertaining. It's also informative. But tell me, I'm a big, I've been talking a lot, Damion, about the transformation of this industry. When I say this, real estate, lending, how technology is changing. No, it's not doing it overnight, but we are seeing, billions of dollars going into disrupting this industry. And it hasn't really showed, there's not a huge impact, but I'm seeing it. So I'm constantly reporting on it, talking about it, understanding it, trying to educate the consumers on it. How would you describe the way technology, if any, is changing the financial industry world? I'm hearing about robo-advisors and different things. My guess is, and I'll just throw this out and I'll give the rest of the time to you to respond. My guess is, I know you're a huge fan of education, information, and really investing in yourself because you mention it all the time. I guess, number one, do you see technology changing the financial services industry? And then the second question to you, if so, what would you say to the consumer? This is what you should be doing, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, to kind of better prepare yourself. We've got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to disrupt the financial services industry and the investing space. What's going to happen is the masses are going to end up with very basic average information and advisory services, primarily because it's so expensive with regulations that are in place that financial advisors, that people that are super, super smart are going to be only able to really focus on super high net worth people. And so the robo-advising and the do-it-yourself stuff is going to end up being what most people use, which means you have to become empowered and you have to really spend time studying. You're not going to be able to get an advisor that's going to really be worth much when you've got $50,000 or $100,000 to invest. They simply don't have the ability to make enough money advising those type of people. And it's not that they're bad people. It's just that they can't make a living doing it. So I think a lot of this stuff is deceptive right now, and it's moving into the digitized space like Peter Diamandis talks about, where we're starting to see it more and more. And these technologies are going to disrupt everything out there. It's why the banks like J.P. Morgan with Jamie Dimon are pushing back on Bitcoin and things, because they're losing control of this system. And that's good for consumers. It's good for the population, but it's very, very dangerous for the establishment. And they're going to push back. But I think that it's probably past their ability to actually contain it.
Yeah, and you got kind of on a not funny or sarcastic. You got all of a sudden when you said Jamie Dimon, you got Jamie Dimon saying, "Don't any of my employees ever get involved or buy or invest in Bitcoin." And it was just kind of a funny statement to me. Did you see that? He said, "I don't want to hear anybody get involved with that."
You know, they're going to push back on that stuff because they haven't been able to figure out how to control it. They're trying to make it so that they own it. But the reality is that is going to be a big play on people's sovereignty, their liberty, their ability to control their future, and capital being able to move around freely. It is not going away, and it's a good thing to know about.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, Damion. Thanks again. It's been a great show. Thanks. Take care. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
RERadiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com. RERadiolive.com.